That's what we like. Man. That guy go down the road. Did he retire? Yeah. And he already wants to retire. Yeah. Yeah. But I think he first year was sometime. The original starts with any get everything. Yeah, other than a party, we got a really bad. Yeah,
And you mentioned that, Joe, that's what the HR people were telling me. They were having it, like, I'm retiring on the September 1. We were the party September 6. So I don't know if we can come back from that. I'm a little confused.
I'm pretty sure you got a problem still broken something.
Along those lines that they haven't figured out the car in this week or maybe next week. That was next week.
What's that?
Yeah.
I'll see.
Get out ahead of that problem.
Yeah. We figure about the time
You're gonna want to use it to get a little bit of sales pretty soon.
Yeah. Oh, do they? And I didn't read them on here. I wasn't gonna make it to meeting, but we needed a driver.
Yeah. Sacrificial driver. You know, I just think of Steve Duke when they start talking about like this. Do you remember Steve White Buck Road?
Like Steve's gone for the Southeast District. But I do remember Bill telling a story about they were going to go somewhere one day and Steve said, we're leaving such a time, they'll be late. And Bill showed up late because I'm gonna lose this.
His guy is Bill Defining there.
He was on done with Steve Duke left.
Or has like a $20,000 a year budget.
Get military early such time, you better be there 15 minutes early.
We will $1,000. If I was gonna bill somewhere, I would try to make it a couple of ways. That way, when you would wait, I had something to do bad. Like, you know, Buckeye's parking lot, at least I go in the store and walk around for a few minutes.
It is what it is. I was already on that argument. David going first, he walked in the building,
Yeah, sure. And that's the new place. So it's our tractor. You're less than it is sort of this is Block starts, you know, MSRP because that's it should start out. But it's all based on NADA. Yes, that's right.
They don't pay. Oh, that's you pay your sales tax. But then
We got right. We were just barely by 10-year-old big companies. Now I require a little it's statewide, we drop 89. That's what used car sales go up, new car sales go down, so then you know less money for your motion. That's where you yeah. There's a reason.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll start with introductions. I'm Jeremy Tans with Seymour Regional Planning Commission.
Alex McRoy, Central Staff.
Long Southeast Missouri. Drew Christian, Seymour, PC.
Joe Killian, MoDOT.
Michael Brandon, MoDOT.
Andrew Meyer, MoDOT.
Chris Crocker, MoDOT.
Marvin Mills, KLG Engineering, SEMPO staff. Stacy Kinderman, Detroit.
Trotter, Detroit County.
Mobile making Cape County Transit.
Hodge, Jackson Center.
Jim Rose, Jackson.
And we have Beth with Seaman University online with us. So go ahead and start with the motion, the approval of the agenda.
Make a motion, we approve it.
Second. Have a motion second, all in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are there in your packet. If you had a chance to review those, once you have a chance to look through them, we'll take a motion to accept those.
Seven.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's stand. So we'll keep moving on. I don't have any communications with Chairman. I just hope MoDOT's gonna touch briefly on HJR 37 sometime, maybe. Andy, are you guys gonna touch on HJR 37 a little bit in your reports or
Sorry, I didn't. see that.
HJR 37?
But not, no,
You guys are talking about that today?
Okay.
don't. What, I'm sorry, you're catching me.
Okay, so that's the House bill that passed the constitutional amendment to take the appropriations away from the tax commission and put them into the legislature.
Is the governor signed it?
No, it's in the Senate now.
Then I'm not gonna talk about it.
Okay. I don't know, is everyone aware of HJR 37, what it is? So
Take away the appropriations from MoDOT away from the highway commission, put the hands for us
yes,
to appropriate.
so it'll be a kind of constitutional change. The way the Constitution is written, MoDOT has the authority, the roads that state road trust fund, MoDOT takes that, they make their budget, then it, but it's MoDOT's budget. This would change that to where that would go through the appropriations process. So, and this is kind of a reaction to the lawsuit and all that other stuff that's been needed. I understand if you guys don't touch on that. It did pass the House and it is in the Senate now, so there are some things that could open up if it changes. Namely, it could change. That would give the legislature pretty much authority to kind of make changes to STIP on their own. It would give them the authority to change the way funding is distributed in the state. So not that those things could change otherwise, but it does open that up a little more. This would be done by the legislature. So just some things to consider. It is HJR 37, and that is, it's passed the House and it is in the Senate. So I'll just move on to that. Any public comments? I don't think there's anyone from the public, so we'll move on to new and unfinished business. At the FY24 Unified Planning Work Program.
Last month in February, we had presented a list of potential projects that I have here, the one pager to our planning committee. From that list, they had selected projects they'd like to prioritize for the year. Our board had an opportunity to review the projects selected by the planning committee, and they offered their initial support of them. So I went ahead and put budget estimates to each project and developed a draft work plan for the year. I did provide our state partners and our federal partners a copy of the draft UPWP, and they've issued their comments, and those have been incorporated. So this is just yet another opportunity to take a look at the projects that we have currently programmed in our draft UPWP. They're listed on this one-page handout, the 2024 FY Unified Planning Work Program. They're the CPC recommended projects at the top. And then for reference, it has all of the projects that were contemplated by the planning committee. Again, this year, we had somewhat unique obstacles in that we're planning for a grants planning initiative, the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. That comes with its own separate grant agreement. It comes with its own reporting requirements, and it'll have performance metrics that'll need to be established throughout the year as we're developing the plan. We also are adjusting our fund balance to align with MoDOT's change in their carryover fund balance policy. And we programmed our SEMPO Regional Trail Connection Study as part of the extra funds that we'll be receiving from Illinois as part of their unspent PL carryover policy. SEMPO is set to receive an additional roughly $65,000 this planning year once we approve all of the grant agreements that IDOT requires. So quite a few moving components with this work plan, but I think we have some great projects selected. And again, if this is yet another opportunity to discuss if anybody has questions about the projects we selected. Otherwise, we intend to bring the draft for our planning committee next month in March, so it'll be March 5th. They'll have an opportunity to review the draft, and then I'll be asking them to release it for public comment and issue a recommendation of additional approval pending any comments to the board at their April 19th meeting. And that'll give us May and June to have it approved by our state and federal partners. So we're making good timing, and this is just yet another opportunity to take a look at what we have planned for the year.
I guess my question is about one that's not on the plan. We have, out of all these, and I don't know how you drafted the initial, but out of all of them, there was one on economic development enhancement, and that wasn't taken forward. Yeah, a lot of one about, safety and multimodal, but, I guess I would like to know why the one on economic development and freight. We used to be much bigger in freight in this region. We've lost a lot of trucking companies. Plus, we have some that do affect our roads, such as the sand mine and so forth. So I just wonder why the freight was dropped out.
No, that's a good question. And we did try to align each of the proposed plans, the number 1 through 10 of just ideas of plan. We did align with our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's the MTP links you see under each plan title. We tried to make sure that each plan that we put forward as an option would align with the goals established in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. And that's just as you had referenced, Mayor, the economic development goal of enhancing economic development for our region. I think some could be aligned with economic development, but you're right, there's nothing specific within our MTP that aligns perfectly with economic development. I think probably our freight plan would have a good argument for enhancing and furthering economic development in our region. That was, I think, number 2. It was an option. It just wasn't prioritized by our planning committee at this time. But it's certainly something that you could send back to the planning committee and say, maybe this instead of something that we currently have programmed.
And, I'm just making this point, not just certainly economic development, but also freight too, specifically. I think that would be the right thing to do right now, especially with freight effects on our roads and.
And we had initially brought up freight, I believe it was 2 years ago now, when we first started our electric vehicle readiness plan. And at the time during those discussions, we had decided to hold off on freight because at that time, MoDOT was currently developing their freight and rail statewide plan. So we had held off initially in 2021 because we thought any planning initiative we would undertake would benefit from having that plan already in place so we could use it for reference. But now that plan has been approved and it is out there to build off of for our area.
Allison? Yeah, along those same lines, number 8 and 9 have been left off. So, they both kind of target low income neighborhoods and transportation issues there. I think that blends in well with the CPA and issues that we've been discussing and access for transportation. Also, knowing that the city of Cape has been rejected in the Reconnecting Communities study grant. I guess that especially number 8, I'm looking at that and the description of it, and it seems like that could be a nice replacement, at least, since we didn't win that grant. So I guess my question is more general, which is why these were left off. I assume it's, we can't do everything on the list, but in terms of some priorities, those are areas of concern to see.
And there was some discussion in our planning committee. Really, they did a good job being pretty diligent going through each one and talking about the pros and cons of taking it up this fiscal year as opposed to particularly waiting. The complete streets discussion with our planning committee, I had made reference to the 2018 policy that the Cape Girardeau City Council passed. They passed the Complete Streets Initiative, which is kind of broad brush attempt at establishing a complete street policy. But it's definitely not as granular as something like a complete street plan for our entire planning area. This was proposed as kind of a much larger scale planning initiative as opposed to a single elected body approving a resolution in support of complete streets. I think some of the hesitancy was because we did have the comprehensive safety action plan. They thought perhaps that might be able to help identify even better priority areas for development of complete streets. As in, they would identify high traffic, high accident areas for both vehicular and pedestrian. And those streets would certainly rise to the top of a complete streets list priority of 1 through 10.
So maybe there's some overlap already in place.
I think so. It's not the exact same goal and outcome, but it definitely has overlaps.
Well, maybe you and I
Certainly
can talk to them about that. All right, thank you.
And then our public transit, human services, transportation coordination plan. I had put there as an option, with the understanding that there may be actionable items coming from the plan we're currently working on that we could then further. But I don't have any assurances that it's going to outline planning initiatives and not necessarily focus more on lower hanging fruit, kind of capital investments like benches and waiting areas with overhead cover. It looked like it might lean a little bit more that way. And speaking with our KLG reps, that's updating the plan. But I thought it was worth keeping in there because that will be a plan we intend to finalize this fiscal year, 23 fiscal year. And then have some marching orders from that plan to make some progress with that.
Well, I know United Way is also in communication with CTA about benches and all of that. I just kind of wonder if the committee is aware of those smaller coordinating efforts. If that would weigh in perhaps next year. This is being considered next year.
Yeah, it certainly could be. And we have been working with United Way. We piggybacked off their public outreach effort.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
And we've been coordinating with them as well.
So that awareness is there.
Yes.
Okay. May not have been, but thank you.
So you have any more discussion or suggestions on the program?
No, but does somebody have a watch or something that's beeping? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I played music for 53 years, my ears are shot.
Okay, well, if we don't have any further discussion, we'd take a motion to set the public hearing for April 19th for the work program. It's
Second.
a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Then public hearing is set. And we'll move on to the IDOT unspent PL policy.
I touched on this briefly. This is just a quick update. I've been working with Tom on the grant agreements and the grant risk assessment forms that need to be completed for the additional IDOT funds that we'll be receiving this fiscal year. And I believe we have our drafts all online and we should be on schedule to get that approved when we'll need it for our fiscal year. I did print out a copy of their guidelines for this upcoming year to receive the funds. So if you're really interested, you can take a look. But other than that, it's just a brief update that we're still on track.
Other questions or follow-up? Let's move on to member reports. City game.
Well, we didn't get our grant for our reconnecting communities, which is disappointing. There were a huge number of projects across the country that studies and construction projects that applied to that. Those were awarded. And yeah, I'd like to follow up with Alex sometime about all that. That's a big thing. And we're just proceeding along with all of our construction and road projects. Go to the website if you want to know more. Call me specific.
City Jackson.
Yeah, but much the same, you know, I think we're preparing our bid packages for our concrete and asphalt upkeep programs for this year, so that'll be coming out in bids that we just done this year. Our major bridge construction continues, and I guess, you know, a lot of what we're waiting on now is the Highway 61 North project. We're planning around that all the time, even with the concrete and asphalt programs that we come out for as repair, and making sure that putting one project on another. Anything else?
Hey, County.
Get ready to put out asphalt. Bids, haven't done that yet. We got rock bids in today. And the way we're doing that now, there's 4 or 5 quarries in the county that provide bids, so we just get prices from that, and we just go whichever one's closest to do a rock. Plan to overlay about 15 miles of roads this year to check, you know, what we got. Let ourselves out. If asphalt comes in, then I think we're okay. If it comes in high, I think we may just buy the machine and lay it ourselves. Figure that out. We'll pay 5 miles of new road this year, which is our commitment to citizens. Use that Prop 1 money to do that. Apple Creek Bridge, I don't think if I reported on that last month or not, but we had $1 million bridge and no bids on it. We had 3 people come to the creek committee and then nobody bid it. So Paul's been talking to you, I think, Chris, whatever. I think we're going to end up doing is maybe put it out again in August and give somebody 2 years to do it. So if everybody's busy, so if we say you got 2 years to do it, still fall within the funding guidelines and everything, we'll do that. I think we've got 2 other bridges to do.
Well,
I don't keep up the VRO stuff as much.
you did the County Road 420 and 436 bridges unsuccessfully, and we're looking at,
So we got 3 of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you're looking at doing a combined required bid on those sometime next year to help and give them more time, like you said. And I think the biggest thing that Paul said, they reached out to the 4 plan holders that were on it. And essentially, they just have enough time to fit it in their schedule.
TAP grant for our sidewalk through the park, connecting the trail from Walden Park to the park to the Lake Playground. That one, we were going to get started with that. We found out we can't do that like our normal park grants. We have to bid that out. Somebody to do it, and if it comes in over a project estimate, then we can go back to MoDOT and say, hey, we can do it cheaper. So that's as long as that we were going to get going on that.
Yeah, I got the call from Paul earlier this week about that one. And I think the disconnect was that he was hoping to do work by local forces, and our policy for work by local forces, essentially you can't start that process unless you unsuccessfully bid a project. And then you can prove that your work forces, your internal staff can do at a better price.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Do you have anything, you know, anything for special road district?
No, I guess next month, Mark takes my place.
It'll be July.
Oh, so oh, shoot. All right, it's gonna be all right.
You got 3 more months.
I'm nominated for chair too. Cape Transit Authority.
Ridership is starting to pick up again. We've hired several drivers, and we were like 10, 12 short. Now we're only about 2 short, so that's good. We're able to keep up with the demand of the customers. We're working also with the city and United Way on finding locations for benches and possible shelters, small shelters, so people could get out of the weather and wait for buses. This is on a fixed bus ride route. We're moving along on that pretty well, so we've got a meeting tonight anyway, the 22nd of March, and probably finalize all that. But other than that, everything else is fine.
SEMO University,
I have no report.
SEMO RPC, Drew, do you have any?
Working on the tip update, I'm getting the projects now from the university and CPA for the transit projects. They've got a couple of questions that we're working through on that, but we're moving along there, and I'm still expecting to have those projects in and done and have the draft completed for the TPC to take a look at next month, and to start the process of public hearings, all that stuff as needed. So I think that's moving along well, and we should be on track for that.
I don't have anything to add, so we'll just move on to, Beth.
I'll do that. And then I'm sure Mike and Chris and Joe can clean up my mess. So we'll give it a whirl. We're in the process of, well, it's the time of year when we update things and estimate things, right? So we've been working on our draft STIP and the focus on our asset management plan, trying to take into consideration the things we've been talking about in our updates of the last probably 6 months of meetings, you know, supply chain issues, the inflationary impacts we've seen in our bids, the increased award costs. You know, we've continued to award projects and try to keep the projects moving. We feel like that's a commitment to our you know, the taxpayers of the state of Missouri and the folks that use our system, but we don't do that in a vacuum. Eventually that comes back and shows up in our program. So as those costs become, I guess should say quantifiable, and we can look at year to year what that does to our targets for our program, the result is we fold that inflation cost in, we fold that increased award cost in, and it impacts what we can do year to year. And what we find is that with projects we already had in our program, we're over programmed. And so then you start looking at, okay, what can we move back? Still holding that commitment to our holding the commitment we made to the public, and when we put it in the program, let's make sure we continue to do that. We're sliding those dates back. What that does is it kind of cascades through your program is you don't really add anything. And so we find ourselves in the unfortunate position of going through a STIP cycle where it does not appear that we can add any unfunded needs projects to our program. We simply after asset management and making those adjustments in our existing STIP projects, there's no room in the STIP for anything beyond just holding a little in the very end of the STIP in the 5th year for emergencies. You know, if something comes up that was completely unexpected, we still have a little wiggle room to make adjustments if we have to. And so Mike can talk about that a lot more intelligently than I can in terms of the numbers, details, but the reality is that, you know, we put that draft STIP together that goes to headquarters for analysis. We go through that with them, and then it goes to our commission and it gets published for comments. And so we're not to that point yet, but we can see globally what that's going to look like. And essentially we're proposing, again, this has not been approved, but we're proposing to move over 100 projects back in roughly a value of $240 million worth of work that would slide back in our program. It would stay in there, but it would slide back. Now, one of the specific major impacts that would have in this area would be the Exit 93 project that has been programmed. You know, I'm sure we talk about this enough. We're all aware that is essentially what was in the program was the bridge replacement, the flyover bridge on South Kings Highway before it intersects with I-55. That bridge was in there. And there was additional funding that had been prioritized for geometric improvements. However, as we worked through the conceptual report, what we would like to do, the whole project was much more than what we actually had in the program. And so that in combination with what we seem to be doing overall, you know, moving projects back, relooking at the costs, looking at really taking a hard look at what's going to be available. That's one aspect of it. The other interesting thing that kind of happened in parallel is every year we inspect our bridges, right? And so that flyover bridge was the subject of a inspection. Brought a consultant in, brought our folks out of Jeff City, our local engineers, and they climbed up in that thing and realized, you know, it isn't as bad as maybe we thought. It is possible that it could be rehabilitated instead of replaced. And what that would do for us, if you look at that strategically, is you take that money, you do a rehabilitation, you make some geometric improvements, and perhaps we give that big project a few more years to, I might use the term percolate. You know, perhaps we can reevaluate at a later date as the traffic volumes increase. We have a better understanding of what the usage needs to be out there or how it's going to develop. Perhaps we postpone that and we give ourselves the flexibility to take another look at it later because we haven't made a huge change. We've rehabilitated the bridge. We haven't replaced the bridge. So you might get another 10 to 15 years of life out of it with a rehabilitation, and that might help us perhaps look at this somewhere down the road. Now, the money that was in the program, it looks like we could probably do the flyover bridge, a few other bridges we've identified on 55 that need work in the same immediate area that would have been touched by that larger project. And as we went through that conceptual, the one specific safety issue that, or perceived safety issue that we've identified is that Silver Springs intersection. There's a lot of concerns with the truck traffic through that. So it is possible that money that was programmed for geometric improvements could still potentially be utilized for that intersection. So Tim Pickett, who's the project manager, is working with the consultant to incorporate all this new information in the context of where we are with our program into the conceptual report and provide that to you all, the city, the county, the folks here with the SEMPO, provide that information so you have an opportunity to evaluate it and comment on it. But we anticipate a scaled back project that really reflects what we're doing with our whole program right now, which is taking a good, hard, realistic look at where we are financially. So, and I think that dovetails with what you're describing, Mr. Herbst, and you know, the bids you're receiving, the things you're seeing, it's the same thing we're looking at, you know, reduced number of bidders, higher prices. It's all going to come back and impact what we can and can't do. And I feel like I've done nothing but be depressing, so I'm going to turn it over. One of these guys has jokes, I promise.
Is Bluefield Road overpass still somewhere on the state somewhere?
That's not in the stead, no.
It's not.
No.
Okay.
And there was used to be maybe on some sort of prioritization list, you know, several years ago, but it hasn't been in the stead.
So with the exit 93 bridge, and I hear what you're saying. I appreciate really what you're saying. I guess the language we've heard so far is that it needs to be replaced, and so I feel like I have to ask: Are you sure it doesn't need to be replaced? I mean,
that's what our engineers are telling us, is that, what we assumed previously was that the degree of saturation was such that, essentially you had a structure that could not be rehabilitated. And, we had some folks that took a good hard look at it and with the understanding that, we need to be realistic about what we can do long term. And again, if we replace the bridge, then we're locked in at that location with that geometric design. I mean, the bridge, the replacement could last 75 years. So if you can get another 10 or 15 out of the one that's there, and perhaps at a later date reevaluate, is this really what we want this interchange to look like? Perhaps that's strategically the right thing to do right now. And again, the structure appears to be in good enough shape that we could rehabilitate it and use it in place. So, and potentially rehabilitate 2 other bridges on 55 with money that's already programmed. So you get 3 for 1, and it gives us another chance to take a look at that location at a later date.
It will be safe.
It's safe now. I mean, it's not in pending, there's nothing wrong with the bridge as it sits, other than, you can evaluate it and look at long term. And one of the things that was a concern earlier, as I mentioned, was how saturated the concrete is, whether or not the deck was still structurally sound. There's one column in the median, in which sometimes we see those bridges with one column like that, and it's a concern as to what happens if you start taking it apart and trying to work on it. That one appears to be in much better shape than we were giving it credit for. So that's a welcome surprise.
Well, the conversation about all the other work, I assume that's still in the $20-25 million price tag range. And quite frankly, I kind of thought that was off the table. And so
I think that's fair, that given no inclination for other entities to partner on the funding, we're not going to be able to. And even if SEMPO prioritized that right now, again, we're not going to move any unfunded projects into our STIP. So we're looking at what can we do with the money that's there, and it appears right now rehabilitation is probably a better option for us. The other thing that came up when I think city staff evaluated the draft conceptual, there were a couple of questions about the next interchange to the north, the new 74 interchange, and whether or not it was fully utilized. And I think that's a valid question. Should we really be looking at these 2 locations separately, or should that be considered in combination? If we haven't maxed that one out, is this one really even necessary? And I think the fact that we've several times closed portions of the old interchange to work on it, without any real severe backup suggests, maybe there's a point there. So, but yeah, I mean, we're not going to be able to get 25 to 30 million in there for any, in the foreseeable future.
yeah. Well, and then I know the further north than the Bloomfield Road Bridge. You mentioned that's right at the Silver Springs intersection you're talking about.
The Bloomfield Road Bridge is north of that interchange, right?
Which the intersection that you were talking about earlier, where is that exactly?
New 74,
It's actually, so
274 by Menards.
yeah.
we're talking about Silver Springs?
Got it. That dead end, where it dead ends.
Yes,
Okay, that intersection. Okay, got it. I was thinking a block
north. Yeah.
And that led me to the question about the
Well,
Bloomfield Road Bridge, just east of there.
I think, the way you all look at your internal circulation probably could lead to different priorities than what we were assuming when we started looking at this project. So I think it's good for us to get the conceptual completely done, put this alternate in there, give you all that information, and then probably take comments at that point. And we may decide we need to do something completely different here.
Well, it doesn't sound like that the Bloomfield Road Bridge doesn't really have any structural problems per se. I think that I've just heard concern about it being wide enough. Or
Right, there's
able to
been,
handle the traffic.
I remember years ago, I think Kelly Green at some point asked for an estimate for 4-laning that bridge, to provide circulation out of the south side of the mall area. And, I think we put an estimate together. I think you all looked at it for your transportation tax list, but I don't know that it ever made it onto that list. And,
Got it.
that's an excellent point, that might be a location that it could conceivably help quite a bit with William Street.
But that's a bit more of a city-led initiative than if, aside from the structural, the city
Right.
planning, I guess, is that.
Yeah, I'm confident that's our bridge uses over the interstate, but the road leading up to it. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'd definitely be interested in partnering on that in the future if you all determine that.
So would we. Thank you.
Next then.
That was a lot of what I was gonna say. I guess I'll move on, just kind of touching up on the STIP a little bit. It's in draft mode right now, being reviewed, air check, and yeah, we weren't able to even add asset management jobs. This inflation has got us so much with the cost of asphalt doing what it's doing, and we buy a lot of asphalt, so that's had huge impact to our program. So there was no more room in the STIP to add any new commitments. We've just kept, and they're the ones that we have, and that still has us past our programming goals. So when I say that, we did add some like job order contract type stuff, small dollar value, concrete repair, guard cable repair type stuff. Overall, we essentially did not add any work to the STIP this go around. Asset management or unfunded needs related. So that being said, we're going to start updating our unfunded needs on a yearly basis now, after we complete our work on the STIP. So we're starting that process now, and I've emailed our 5 planning partners, and Alex has got some information, and we're updating it, and it's going to be a lot of them are kind of people are going with the similar what's on the list right now. I think the MPO is going to have a little of a shake up this. With what Andy just said with the flyover bridge, determine how we want to handle that. I'll work with Alex on and with what inflation does. It may have to make us decide on trimming some projects out or shortening employments or something like that after we get these things re-estimated.
So if you think of the unfunded needs list as having specific dollar amount targets, your existing list could, because of the increased estimate cost, your existing list could swell and things would drop off of it. I mean, that's the reality right now. And I think we've talked about internally the 6-lane 55 and the exit 93 were both very large dollar amount projects. So, those are things to take into consideration as you reevaluate your priorities. Beyond that, I'm really thankful we were able to get the projects on the program that we added. Gosh, it seems like just yesterday, but that was quite a while ago now.
So it'll be due at the end of May. So we'll probably be looking at the next meeting to have a finalized list. We can work towards that at the next board meeting. Whatever we come up with and have a finalized list and go from there.
I got a couple project updates beyond the exit 93. Route K and 25 roundabout project. That was scheduled to be in the May letting coming up shortly. Unfortunately, we had to push that back to I believe in October letting this year. One of the big things that come of the public meeting that we held a while back at Gordonville was that we realized that there was some access management that we needed to do there at the gas station. And as a result of that, we're having to realign some of the entrances to the southeast quadrant of that project, where the printing business is at. And we're working with that property owner right now to acquire some of that right away. So it's caused us to be pushed back in the way. Additionally, we met with the city of Jackson to kind of finalize the plans for the Route 61 North project there at Hubble Creek, where we're doing the full depth repair project. That's pretty well underway. It's going to be in the main letting as well. Working with the city right now to get an agreement out that outlines all of the costs for MoDOT and the costs for the city. Got that completed and sent to our e-agreements group for review. I sent a draft to Rodney today. They're taking a look at that and hopefully getting their stuff that they need to be able to execute that agreement. So look for that one in the letting in May. I think one of the things to consider too with that project, the Route K and 25 project, we've also met with the city to talk about Deerwood Drive and Route 61 cost share project. The west side of I-55 in the Jackson area is going to be really busy at the maybe 2024. And we're working with our internal staff right now to kind of come up with a guesstimate of when we think these projects are going to be going on and routes closed and things are affected, so that when we have incidents like we've had in the past couple months on I-55, we've had kind of a game plan together that hopefully will work, that we can reroute traffic and get them through the city in a quick as possible fashion. So I'm going to be sending the city of Cape and the city of Jackson. It's nothing elaborate. It's just hey, this is what we think is going to be the best route, and share that with you guys, because it will involve maybe using one of the city streets at the interchange of just south of Fruitland.
East Main,
Exit 102.
South.
Route W.
Yeah. So just something we'd like to share with you guys and local EMS and law enforcement and those folks, so that we got somewhat of a game plan, but things change and you just never know what happens, but we'd like to be a little bit more prepared for it in the coming years.
That was impressive in its scope. Never seen anything like that, but unfortunately, I mean, a tragic accident, but in one of the worst places possible too.
Yeah. Chester River Bridge, if you didn't hear, we did announce the selection for the design build team on that. It looks like it's the Ames teams has been selected to move forward as the design build team. I talked to Brian yesterday. We still can't release a whole lot of information about the project just because of the design build process. So more to come on that. He does think that maybe sometime late summer that will be up and running and under construction, hopefully. But if you're curious of what the new structure looks like, you can visit our website. Just Google Chester River Bridge, and we have a website that gives updates on that. And it looks very similar to the Bill Emerson Bridge with the addition of another tower. So it's a cable stay bridge, and it's going to be roughly twice as wide as the existing bridge, and look very similar to the Bill Emerson.
Only shorter towers. So
Yes, shorter tower. Yeah.
you still have that, they'll have more towers, but you'll have taller towers.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Throw the bone, please.
Some LPA project updates. Like I said, the Deerwood cost share project on Route 61, we met with the city and their consultant earlier this week to talk about some preliminary type stuff. I think the pavement selection type, the city just wanted some options to consider, and we spoke with our pavement design folks in central office, and they're really more geared towards full depth concrete for roundabouts, just because they hold up a lot better long term. And then even the consultant had some good points as far as designing the project. You know, not a lot of the existing pavement is left after the roundabout's actually designed, and then it helps with drainage and those sorts of things. So the city's weighing their options right now and trying to make a determination on where to go with that. And then once they get that, we hope to have preliminary plans on that project very soon. The cost share project with the city of Cape Girardeau, Minnesota Avenue and Route 74. That project had been delayed a little bit due to Board of the Cable Engineering with some right-of-way issues. I believe that it's been resolved and they're moving forward, and he said he hopes to submit the PS&E, the plan specs and estimates to us here shortly. So once we get that, what we'll do is we'll take a look at it, see if anything needs to change, and send comments back to the city. And then we'll repeat that process until it's fine tuned and ready. The Kings Highway Morris Drive TAP project, that one's pretty well near done. I think there was some minor comments sent to Bank Farmer, and then we hope to have those back here shortly. And then the city's contemplating the idea of doing their own consultant inspection versus hiring a consultant. So that was moving along. And then the Cape Rock Drive TAP project, we're still working with the city to get an engineer on board for those.
Sidewalks.
What's that?
Sidewalks.
Yes, it's a sidewalk project on Cape Rock Drive. It basically extends from the crossing there at Kiwanis Drive and 60. And then Charlie had already talked about the Bureau projects. As far as general updates on LPA, the on-call list for consultants that you could utilize if you were to have a project where the design costs are under $100,000. That was revamped this year. Every 3 years, we basically look at those consultants and allow other consultants to submit to be on the on-call list. It just streamlines the startup process for design. And if you do use that list, the only requirement is that the design costs are under $100,000. And we do suggest that you reach out to at least 3 prospective consultants on that, just to kind of weigh your options. But that new list is out on our website for everyone to see. We will be having a VRO call for projects again this year in May. I know the city of Jackson submitted a application. The last round wasn't selected, so hopefully you guys can submit another application and be considered for the VRO program. And then in July or August, I think we're going to have another TAP call for projects as well. It'll be a 2-year call. The VRO call for projects will just be a 1-year call for projects. And if you need to take your LBA basic training, we do have an LTAP program available online. You probably just got it at CCAM.
I just got to see you.
But it is April 6th, 11th, and 13th. You have to attend all 3 of those to complete the course, and they're 3 hours a piece. I'm not sure why it's longer than the normal one, but maybe it's a little bit more in depth. So if you're interested in that, it is available coming up. And then just wanted to do a plug on trash. It's that time of year. We went all winter.
Stands for the acronym.
What's that?
The LTAP acronym stands for Local Transportation.
Assistance program.
That's
Okay.
right, transportation assistance program. So you have a program, train the program manager and staff.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Like I said, just wanted to do a quick plug on trash. I know it's been a long winter. We haven't mowed or anything like that. So this time of year, the trash is more visible on our highways than it is typically throughout the rest of the year. The month of April is our No More Trash Bash month. We encourage local groups or organizations to reach out to us if you're interested in helping out with picking up for litter. You don't have to adopt a highway or anything like that. You can do a one-time cleanup effort, and it's just our way of promoting, picking up and keeping our highways clean. And so if you're interested in anything, just let me know.
Is DOC started doing a little bit again? I swear I thought around Jefferson County, I saw some gray suit guys with MoDOT
We
doing a little bit.
so our incarcerated crew, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
They go out of the Bon Terre facility, the prison in Bon Terre, and they get St. Francis pretty well because Bon Terre is right there in St. Francis County. And then I think they can touch a little bit on Iron and Madison and St. John counties, but it's just a matter of being able to go pick them up,
Yeah.
take them to that site and take them back. It's just not efficient.
I think in this area, what we saw frequently was incarcerates from Charleston.
Charleston used to do it.
They discontinued that program. They're unable to,
They're short.
Yeah.
Trust or short officers. I get it.
You guys are out of jail.
No, yeah, the liability is just stupid. And we have all felons in our jail. Well, of course they do in prison too. People in the local jail, think people are in there for a speeding ticket or something or whatever, but we get a 260 daily population, and they're all felons.
I know Iron County
That's why they're there.
utilizes their jail staff to pick up on the county roads and even sometimes the state highway system, but yeah,
I was planning to highlight at our Monday's meeting, I was planning to highlight this as well. On your website, can you sign up for the one-time litter pickup also?
I was just looking at that and I don't think that you can. That's why I say give me a call and I'll talk to Nicole and then our Adopt Highway coordinator to see what groups that they're talking about are getting together. I think what it more than likely will wind up being, if you can produce a big enough group for a one-time event, we'll supply you with the bags and the vests, and then you just tell us where you're gonna be at. And I think there's a, similar to Adopt a Highway, you'll have to watch a safety presentation in order to go out. It's not very long, it just goes over the, how to be safe.
Our Boy Scouts have that route case stretch there, but.
Okay.
Our maintenance staff, just so you're aware, we are putting a bigger emphasis right now on litter control. I think we're trying to focus about maybe 25% of our time towards litter pickup, when we're even donating, or not donating, but allocated overtime right now beyond our normal commitments that we do to be able to try and get the roads looking in better shape. Do you have anything else? And I'll get some clarification on that, because again, I was looking at the same thing. If I was a prospective person wanting to reach out and do that, it wasn't clear how to go about it. That's all I have.
Joe, you got anything to add?
Now that we do have the STIP information in, we're starting to work on the draft. I will be providing that list to Drew. I'll try to get that either this afternoon or tomorrow morning and get that to you. I realize that's the bulk of your work there, and I don't want to hold you back any more than we have to, so soon. That's all I have.
We'll move on to IDOT. You got
Nothing to report.
staff report.
Okay, we were notified, we as in the city of Cape Girardeau, that we were not successful with the Reconnecting Community Pilot Program. That was a grant application seeking a study for Missouri Highway 74 / Shawnee Parkway, enhancing north-south mobility in that area along that corridor. Application was asking for $120,000, providing the required 20% local match of $30,000 for $150,000 project. That program was a lot more competitive than some of the other programs that we have participated in. Ultimately, there were only 6 capital projects that were selected and only 39 planning grant projects throughout the entire country that were awarded funds. this first fiscal year. It is a program with $1 billion over the 5 years of the bipartisan infrastructure law legislation. I did schedule a meeting with the US DOT representative to do a debrief on the city's application to see how it might be enhanced in the future if we want to participate again. So that'll be some feedback. If anyone's interested, I could share what they had provided to me. But I also wanted to let the group know, as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA, there's a new program coming up. It's entitled Neighborhood Access and Equity Grant Program. It has carved out within the IRA $3 billion toward that neighborhood access equity program. So the Reconnecting Communities and the Neighborhood Access Program are being stated by US DOT as being very comparable in nature and in ultimate goals, where the Reconnecting Community Program has $1 billion over the 5 years. The Neighborhood Access and Equity Program has $3 billion over the 5 years. In this first round, they're looking at releasing in June of this year, June 2023. For 2022 and 2023 applications. So they'll have 700 million available this first round for the Neighborhood Access Program. With 350 million, no, I'm sorry, I'm conflating two different things. 3 billion for neighborhood access. And again, that would be another option for any community to take a look at. Cape or Jackson, interested in enhancing pedestrian access or pedestrian infrastructure. Another program that had just been released today, the notice of funding was released today, is the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Discretionary Grant Program. That again is through the US DOT. That has 2.5 billion over 5 years. And that's the one that is rolling 2022 and 2023 together this year for 700 million available for charging infrastructure for communities. And they're carving out 350 million for what they entitle Community Charging and Fueling Program grants. They have 2 programs within it's called the CFI, Charging Fuel Infrastructure Program. The community charging being one of those programs within it for 350 million for the first year. And then the other program they have is 350 million for areas that are designated alternative fuel corridor grants. So that would be an option for any community looking to develop electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And we do have an adopted plan that could help bolster any application for anyone interested in that. It is an 80-20 like most federal grants, so there would be a 20% local match or any kind or private contributions for any particular project. And then finally, Charlie, I'm sorry you're not off the hook yet. Your tenure actually expires June 30th, 2024. Started your 2-year term, July 1, 2022.
Well, in the work program, we need to correct, it actually showed him as non-voting. Mark Phillips is the voting.
That's gonna be a catch. So
That's why I said that, because I never can keep track.
We got 1 more year as a vote. That's
So
all.
we need to vote to amend the.
I think I can do that in this straight.
Okay. Does anyone have any other business or communications they want to share with the group? Hearing none, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's the street, baby. I guess, we didn't even mention that. So what's the problem?
Yes. They kind of wait on stuff on there.
Turn it off. Independently. I didn't. There we go. And she had. It worked well, we did it. You were.
I only assume they're probably just. Yeah. Let me try to.
I use.
Okay, well, I'll last.
You're on the other.
Say yes, right?
I left it there. I was certainly seeing the official way to go about that. Yeah, it's definitely now. 30 years ago. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It'll be interesting.
Oh, he wanted a street sweeper. I.
That story.